Do you want to know what genre of fiction outsells all the others by a huge margin and makes up more than 50% of the market, plus sells $1.5 billion in books every year? Romance novels. Let me tell you, I built a very good career out of writing romance, and it made me very happy even as the people around me just kind of put me down because I was just writing romance novels. Well, those are still novels, I gotta tell you, and you still have to write a compelling book if you want readers to read this one, to tell their friends about this one, and then to buy your next one. If you want to be part of that $1.5 billion in sales, then this video is for you. I'm going to tell you exactly what makes a romance novel and how to write one. Plus, I'm going to take a scene and break it down so you know exactly what goes into a scene and what really brings that all together so it's a compelling novel. Because if you want readers to love your book and buy your next one, this book has to be amazing. If you're struggling to write or you're struggling to finish your novel, I get it. I struggle to keep going. And I wish I had had somebody that told me, this is how it goes together. Here's your ABC for how it fits together. I'd really like to save you some of those heartaches and headaches I went through. I'm also going to tell you the #1 mistake that new writers make. A romance novel is obviously about a love story, but there are also several subgenres in there. There's historical romance, romantic suspense, inspirational romance. There's a ton of them, all kinds of subgenres to the subgenres. The core thing of a romance is that it is a love story of some kind. It doesn't have to be a male and a female. It doesn't have to be a male and a male. It can be a polyamorous story. It can be anything. It's just all about the process of falling in love. It doesn't even have to be happily ever after. It can be happy for now. If more than 50% of your book is dedicated to the developing relationship between the main characters, then it's a romance. You can use what I teach you in this video for writing any kind of book because they all have the same basic structure. Is a romance novel formulaic? It's no more of a formula than any other book is. Books have structure, period. So all of those videos I've done on plotting apply no matter what you're writing. When I first started writing them, I got a lot of crap from like my history teacher who told me I was never gonna make a living writing fluff novels, and why would I want to waste my talents on such a silly book? I like happy stories, and writing romance novels allowed me to have kind of an escape into some happiness and joy and the ideal that I really wanted to pursue. That really gave me hope that that was out there in the world. I'm going to just use the examples of a hero and heroine in this video, but you can substitute that with hero, heroine, cyborg and heroine, whatever your romance story is about. It's, again, about love. So it can be any combination of love that is out there in the world or that you create. Both the hero and heroine will have an external and an internal goal, motivation, and conflict, and that is what they want and need to accomplish by the end of the book. The external is all of the tangible things. The internal is all the emotional baggage, essentially, and the character has to have it. They can't be too much of a hot mess because the reader has to have hope that this person can solve their emotional baggage issues and fall in love and have a healthy, productive relationship. We all have that friend who is pursuing a guy who's emotionally unavailable. She's totally insecure. She ignores all the red flags. We all know that is not going to work out. That's what you're going to want for your heroine and hero. They have to be able to figure out their emotional baggage and solve it before they are ready to fall in love and have happily ever after.
It's not just a case of physical attraction. I admire her mind, too.
A romance novel has to have some kind of a meet cute.
Look at each other. And that's the meet cute.
Doesn't have to actually be a cute meeting. It has to be the hero and heroine or whoever the love partners are meeting early on in the book, because the reader is reading this book because they're expecting a love story. So if you don't have the love interest meet until like chapter 5, the reader's going to be like, wait, where's the love story? So you've got to have them meet early on in the book. A lot of times writers get 2 or 3 chapters in and then the book falls flat and they don't know what to write next. And I will tell you exactly why it's falling flat. You are missing one key component: conflict. Conflict is the thing that I find that writers don't put enough in. They don't want to be mean to their characters. They don't want to, create arguments. And conflict is not necessarily an argument. Conflict is roadblocks, obstacles, both emotional and external, that get in the character's way. There are lots of videos on my channel about conflict if you want some refreshers on it. And if you're struggling with it, I highly recommend you watch those videos and then come back to this one. I'm going to show you in action exactly how that conflict works with an excerpt from a book of mine called From There to Back Again. I just pulled a chapter from here. It's chapter 4. The hero and heroine do meet early on in the book, but it was a very small, short scene. So I wanted to get to one that actually engages the two love interests and show you how it works so that you can see exactly how it works on the page and then apply those lessons to your own book. What you're going to look for is the structure, and that's what you want to copy, is the structure of this scene, not the words, because I already wrote those and published them, they're mine. The overall storyline for this book is that Olivia, the heroine, has inherited a house from her mother that she never met, and it's a complete mess, and she's trying to fix it up. She also finds a stray dog that has been abused or is hungry. She's not quite sure what. She can't find the dog after she sees it. Next door neighbor to her is Luke, who's a Coast Guard pilot who actually is partially blind after being in an accident that killed his best friend. Olivia's goal for the whole book is to fix up the house and find out who she is and kind of recenter herself in terms of who she is as a person. That's her external goal, fixing up the house. Her internal goal is to kind of figure out who she is as a person. Luke basically just wants to be left alone. He is Shrek. He is an ogre who doesn't want anybody to bother him, and he wants to just wallow in his guilt. But as the book goes along, he finds that he wants to kind of come back to his life, find a new way of living, and also find a way to forgive himself. So that's what's going on for them when the book opens. And I want you to notice something. They have goals that don't have anything to do with each other, because that ties into that last key at the end that I'm going to talk about. This scene in chapter 4 opens in Olivia's point of view, and right away her scene goal is there. I've shown you the structure of a plot before, and all of those little steps up the ladder, those are scene goals that feed into the overall goal. So if Olivia wants to fix up her house, then she's got to do different things like tear down walls and paint them and whatever. There's a lot of steps involved in fixing up a house, and those are scene goals. So in this particular scene, she basically just wants to replace the ceiling fan that's broken. And that's exactly what she's trying to do in this opening. But it's not going well. The screw falls out and it goes into the corner and then goes through the floorboard, so the screw is gone. And what is that right there? It's conflict. Conflict, again, is anything that gets in the way of the character's goal. Her goal is to fix the fan. Screw's gone. How is she going to fix the fan? Then a minute later, it gets worse. It turns out that there's lots of screws that are gone. The wires are hanging. She's not sure which wires go anywhere. And then she looks around the room and she sees all these building supplies she's bought, and she has no idea how to use them. What are those? More conflicts. More roadblocks getting in the way of her figuring out how to rebuild this house. It is not looking good for her to achieve her scene goal. So she takes a minute, she takes a break, and she has a moment of introspection. And it really is a small moment of introspection because she's busy, she's doing something. She's trying to find clues to who her mother was, the mother that gave her up when she was born. And why? Because she's dealing with these abandonment issues. And she searches the whole house, doesn't find anything. And what is that? More conflict. Again, she's not accomplishing that goal either. And then we get to the true emotional internal issue for her. She's debating whether to ask the people that knew her mother about it, and then she's afraid that the answer will hurt more. That's emotional internal conflict. She's afraid that finding out why her mother didn't want her will hurt her more than just going through life thinking her mother didn't want her. This scene does not have that number one mistake that I'm going to talk about later in this video. Now, I'm not going to go through every word in the scene because I want to get to the romance plot. So the ceiling fan falls to the floor, shatters. It's even worse now, more conflict, and someone bangs on the door. So now she's got an interruption, another conflict. So if you're seeing a pattern here, conflict, 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 because that's what's keeping the character moving forward. It keeps the tension in the reader's gut, keeps the reader turning the pages to see if it'll work out. And now we bring in the hero. Now this is the romance specific part that makes up the book. There's something here called sexual tension. She's attracted to him, and that's what you've got in this teeny tiny bit of introspection when she sees him and she's like, wow, he's hot. In a romance, the characters obviously have to be attracted to each other at some point because that makes it believable that they would fall in love. So those lines that I have there create some sexual tension between them. But it also creates more conflict. She's not interested. She's got a complicated life. So, you've got this conflict, 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 and then, wow, hot guy, conflict, I'm not going to fall in love with him. So you can see that structure happening, right? So we have conflict for her external goal, the ceiling fan, the building supplies, conflict for her internal goal, the secrets that she can't discover, and conflict for her romantic issue here with not wanting to fall in love with him because she's got other things going on. And again, this ties into that number one mistake, which we'll get to in a minute. So the first thing that the hero says when she opens the door is something that shows he's annoyed with her because that stray dog is next door. So there's a little bit more conflict when he puts down her little Bichon. The stray dog is a golden, and that's the one that he's talking about next door. But her dog is right there, and he calls it a hairball. And then when she calls him on it, now he could be a jerk. But this is a romance novel. I want the reader to believe that she could fall in love with him. So instead of him being a jerk, he has a teeny tiny save the cat moment. Did you see it? He's nice to the Bichon just for a second, and that gives the reader a teeny tiny bit of hope that maybe he's a good guy, even though we know he's a very grumpy ogre next door. That teeny tiny moment with the dog sets the stage for what comes next. They talk about him seeing the golden that Olivia cared about, and he tells her, you got to come get it, it's over at my house, and go with him. Now, this scene is written in Olivia's point of view, and she does not know about Luke's partial blindness, but I put a teeny tiny hint in there about it with the next lines where he moves slowly and cautiously down the stairs. Then they have a brief sort of funny exchange about the porch. And she's confused about the terms, and he kind of corrects her, all of that. It's a little bit of repartee that sets the stage for them at least to become friends. Then when Olivia goes to shut the door, the handle falls off and the door falls apart, and boom, what is that? More conflict. So everything is just going worse and worse and worse for her with this poor house. And when that happens, it's like the last straw for her. And she sort of falls apart because she's very frustrated and just feeling like a failure. And so I show that. It's all of her conflicts in that one paragraph tied up into one little ball of a paragraph. It happens very quickly because Luke is standing right there. And that's the thing about pacing. When one character's standing there, you don't want the other character thinking and thinking and thinking. That's very boring to watch. And it seems like he's mean at first. What the hell are you doing? He says. She kind of like explains, and then the reader's kind of thinking, maybe he is a jerk. But then he has another save the cat moment. They create conflict between each other, and I bring him back with something nice. He makes her laugh. He gives her the inevitable line about duct tape, all of that, and it builds, again, a little repartee and a little bit of a connection between them. And because he's uncomfortable with his emotions, he doesn't say something emotional. That is within keeping for his character, but he does do a guy thing with like, let's fix it with duct tape. One of the things I didn't really talk about in this video, but I will do in a future video, is pacing. If you look at this scene here, if you look at each of the paragraphs, everything kind of moves along at a pretty quick pace. I did summarize a little bit of it, but it's mostly the same throughout the whole scene with all of the pacing. And there's not a lot of pausing and thinking, because when people pause and think in a book, it grinds everything to a halt. It's just like, boom, we stop the car in the middle of the road. You can't do that for very long because the reader gets bored, because the reader is essentially watching the character think, and the other characters get bored. And because everything comes to a stop, you lose that tension. It's like if you're on a roller coaster and it's going up, 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 and you're just like, oh my God, and then it comes coming down really, really fast, and then it just stops on the tracks, just sits at the bottom. Stopped. Very boring. And you're just like, okay, let's get going. Let's get back to the ride. So that's why you don't want a ton of introspection or a ton of backstory. And I do have videos on backstory, so look for those as well. The characters' goals, all of the main characters in a romance novel, their goals should never, ever, 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 ever be to fall in love. What? It's a romance novel, right? That sounds crazy. It's not, though. Because if you think about it, if you have that friend who all she wants to do is just find Mr. Right and fall in love, you're like, honey, get a life, like go get a career, buy a house, do things for yourself. Your life should not revolve around a man. So we don't want to read about people like that either, where their whole goal is just to fall in love. They need to be fully formed characters with goals of their own before they meet. In a romance novel, the love story complicates all that. It comes along at the worst possible time. If you look at the structure of You've Got Mail, she's got a goal of saving her store. He's got a goal of opening his store. Those goals are going at the same time. And when they fall in love, it's the worst possible time, because the viewer knows in You've Got Mail that that's going to explode on everybody because they're warring with each other as well. So falling in love with each other is really the worst thing that could happen at that time in their lives.
Don't cry, shop girl. Don't cry.
You don't want the main character's only goal to be fall in love and have the birds and the bees and all of that happiness like a Snow White movie. The protagonists that come into the book with existing lives and goals and motivations for those goals are people that we root for, people that we want to see succeed. And so the reader all along is rooting for them to not only achieve their goals, but also to find love and happiness. And along the way, your protagonist is going to solve their emotional baggage and be fully ready to fall in love and have a healthy, stable relationship. Otherwise, the reader's going to look at it and go, that's not going to work. We all have that friend like that, right? And that is what makes a romance novel really compelling and make readers just be like, you've got to read this book. It's amazing. So tell me, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing a romance novel? And did you like these scene breakdowns? Do you want to see more of these? Because I've got a lot of them that I would really love to break down for you guys and show you exactly how it works. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and pick up the book that gives you all of my teaching in one place. And then I will see you on the other side of the page.